So, welcome back, everyone. We're now live on Facebook, so I want to say hi to everybody out there. There's my hand right there. We now have with me Troy Froderman, and he's one of the principals of FR Law Group. Welcome back to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. If you've been here and on and off, but live here with me now, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what we're going to talk about today.
Good afternoon, Carol. Yes, so FR Law Group started, we just finished our third year, so we're starting into our fourth year as a law firm. We specialize in business litigation, and we principally focus on construction claims, and then also on all sorts of a variety of business insurance claims. And so I thought today what we would discuss is kind of a primer or some tips on how to best pursue insurance when you have a loss at your business.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this because, a lot of people that listen to this station, business owners, there's new businesses that are opening right and left here as well. I want to talk about you as how you work with your clients, what it looks like when they call you, how, do you do a free consultation with them, how does that work?
So, sure. The way that we conduct business at FR Law Group is we really pride ourselves on knowing our clients and knowing their business. And it's our belief that the best way to provide legal services to a client is to know their space, to understand what their business risks are, what their goals are, and also the people, the talent within the client. And so we really take time to do that. We do a lot of background analysis, research on the clients at our own cost, not charged obviously to the client, so that when they do have a business issue that they need our assistance on, we're their feet running on the ground immediately.
And so when they call you, they would call you direct at 602-566-7425. Your website is frlawgroup.com. You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. Now, when you work with people, though, obviously you have your law firm here, but you work nationwide as well.
We do. We have matters pending throughout the country. So typically what will happen is if a business is located here in Arizona, they may have other stuff going on throughout the country, particularly if they're a national company that just happens to have a presence here.
Right.
So my background is having spent over 27 years with an international law firm, traveling the globe, advising clients, litigating cases. So we take that level of experience and we're now able to bring it to a client that couldn't afford an international law firm.
Right, and I think that's what's great about you is that is what you try to do is make it so that it was affordable for people to get representation. When, first of all, some people don't even realize that they can get this and what they can do, and when this plays, especially with insurance claims. I want to talk about how somebody does pursue it, how do they do that, and when the best time is to call you.
Sure. So any business has risks, and you may have a fleet of automobiles, you may have different plants and operations. Sometimes the business risk and the business loss is fairly easy to identify. One of your employees is involved in an automobile accident and injures a third party. Well, that one's pretty easy. You just tender it to your business auto carrier. There may be times, though, in that example, where it's not as clear-cut. Let's say that the employee was involved in the accident at 8 o'clock at night, and his hours of operation for the employer are from 8 to 5. Well, does the business policy cover that after-hours accident? That's where you need the assistance of a lawyer, particularly if the loss is significant.
Sure.
If it's a wrongful death, then you're looking at exposure, significant exposure. And so that's when you really want to bring somebody in like FR Law Group to advise you, because the insurance carrier, as I've said repeatedly, the portion of the policy that provides coverage is less than 1 page. The remainder of the policy is a section on definitions and a whole list of exclusions. And so, in the example I just laid out for you, which is relatively simple, the insurance carrier may come back and say, well, we only cover that individual during hours of operation. So then you get into a whole dynamic about course and scope of employment, where was the accident as a result of him, of that employee, leaving the scene or leaving work and getting into an accident, or was it just something that was on his own personal time, and it gets embroiled.
It's a great time for you to be mentioning this, because a lot of employees might be leaving work and having that happen, especially with, I know now the holidays are here, and we are partying a little bit, right?
Right.
And this could happen. It can happen in any way. It doesn't have to be with this, but it just so happens that it's the holidays are here.
Right, and I bring that example up because that one's fairly simple. The ones that we really typically get involved in when it's not as simple. Let's say that there's some type of, let's say you create a widget, and there's a breakdown on the assembly line, and you end up losing profit as a result of the breakdown. So at that point, most companies have property policies, and most property policies have business interruption service or coverage. And so the question becomes then, is that a covered claim, and how much is the loss? And the policy will have different subsections within it that quantifies different sub-bases of that loss.
So we've spoken about the policy a lot, right? And many times you've been here because it is all about the policy and what it says.
Right.
And it's kind of where you come in, where you can read it, right? But when do you call you? Do you call when it before or after, or what's the right time?
The answer is yes to all of that. So the way I like to explain it is, so when you have a loss and you want to present it to your insurance carrier, most of our clients coming to us, this is the first time they've had to deal with a significant loss where they're seeking insurance coverage. So they are just, into the process for the first time. On the other side is the insurance carrier. They have a whole group of employees who are trained on reading these policies, who understand claims adjusting, who know the ins and outs of that particular policy. Then they have layers of supervisors on top of that. And so you have, on one side, the policyholder who's new to this, and then on the other side, you have a very gigantic corporation
Who's over to it and has
does it every day.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when you really need the assistance of a coverage counsel to come in and advise you.
Now, the phone number to call them is area code 602-566-7425. They do free consultations. They work nationwide, right with the Better Business Bureau. They're located right here in, it's 7th Street in Camelback, right off of, right next to Xavier. But they help anyone nationwide. I think it's really important for people. Obviously, if you're going through something, do you do second opinions?
Yeah, we do. And what I say to clients, if they come to me and they ask for advice on a particular loss, my suggestion to them is, because sometimes it's a coin flip on whether there's coverage or not. And so whenever I think that it's a coin flip, I always say you're better to go and get a second opinion in case I missed something or in case something's changed. But it's like going to a doctor. If they're going to perform major surgery, obviously you're going to want to go and get a second opinion.
Sure. I think that's a really important point, too. And I think that's also important if you're dealing with something right now. What I love about this show is information that you're hearing here that you can take with you. Write the number down. You never know also when you're going to need something like this. I think that's really important for people to write the number down at 602-566-7425. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. I want to talk about some other things. I like talking about the stories. Those are kind of neat too. And be prepared, obviously,
Yes.
and be proactive. And God forbid something is happening, have somebody take a look at it. That's what he's here for, to tell you about himself. Again, he's rated with the Better Business Bureau. Check him out at frlawgroup.com. Okay, so we lost what was here on phone. okay? But we have it here. Okay, just want to let you know that. So if there's anything more that you want me to make sure I get to, will you tell me like right now? Because I have no idea if there is.
What I'd like to talk about next is, this is kind of since Phoenix has a large hospitality, when you have some type of outbreak at a hotel, there's coverage for that.
Like a COVID outbreak?
Well, not I would call it COVID. So, like, if you have some type of bacteria,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's a lot of Legionnaire's disease stuff out there that people don't know about.
Oh, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about that.
I know, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Or some type of food poisoning,
Yeah.
or typically or mold.
Oh, that's a good one. Because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, but I think what I'd like to start with is going back just to the basics, which is insurance contract, or insurance policy is simply a contract.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know exactly what to say. So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Troy Froderman, and he is one of the principals of FR Law Group. At the break, we've been sort of talking about what we wanted to talk about for the next half, and one of the things that we wanted to go back on was going to the basics. And I love going to basics with things because sometimes people need to hear things over and over again, and also need to understand things. One of the things that we talked about was the contracts, right? Let's go back onto that and how you wanted to talk about them.
Sure. So, especially for small businesses, I've had so many small business clients over the years. When they think of insurance, they just assume that if there's a loss, that their insurance carrier is going to step up and pay for the loss, and that is not the case. So, an insurance policy is nothing more, nothing less than a contract. It's a written contract between the business and the insurance carrier. And the insurance carrier, in most instances, drafts the entirety of the insurance policy. And so it's very important that when there is a loss, that you go back and you review the policy before putting the insurance carrier on notice. Make certain that the policy that you're tendering is the correct policy, and make certain that you're relying on the correct language in that policy to trigger the insurance carrier's obligations. There are all sorts of games that can be played to avoid the contractual obligation that the insurance carrier has.
So when do they call you on that?
Well, again, if it's a relatively small matter, an auto accident, something like that, probably don't need to call us. But if there is a loss, whether it's bodily injury injury, property damage, trademark, pollution, whatever the loss is, and it's one that is of significance. The way that public companies refer to it is, does it have a material impact, such that you have to report it? So, and for FR Law Group, the best thing to do is if it's enough of a business loss for you to be worried about in terms of affecting the bottom line for your company, then you should call FR.
You know, I want to say this, so some person might feel like it was a big loss for them,
Sure.
right? Of course, maybe the insurance company doesn't see it that way, right? So can they call you, talk to you, see what, you know, and talk to you about it? Obviously, if it's something that doesn't make sense, don't call, but if it might.
Sure. It's the old saying that minor surgery for you is major surgery if it's going to happen to me. So every client, every business has their own gut factor in terms of what, you know, they're worried about. So typically what we do is we meet with the client or the prospective client. We do that at no charge, review the policy, review the loss. And I've been doing this long enough that if I don't think it's covered, I will tell you, and I will tell you why I don't think it's covered. If I think there's a question, then we will certainly sit down
and you never know until you find out,
right?
It's all about that phone call, to have that conversation about it. The number to call is 602-566-7425. Their website is frlawgroup.com. I want to also talk about stores, because we were talking about sometimes there's things that go on, at, like you said, in the hospitality industry, things that happen. And I would love to hear you to tell one of them.
Yeah, so one of the ones that to me is interesting, I represented years ago a well-known resort here in Arizona where a guest contracted Legionnaire's disease and ultimately passed away from it.
Oh, that's terrible.
And so the question became proximate causation. Where was he exposed such that he could have contracted what most people think is a very unusual disease, but it's more prevalent than folks know. So basically, it can occur in stagnant water that gets piped through either ventilation system, fountains, water fountains, misters. And so the argument...
Don't go out. Just don't go out.
Right. Yeah. So the argument that was made was that there was Legionella bacteria in the water system of that resort. And it's almost like proving a negative for the resort, because it's the Legionella bacteria is what we say is omnipresent. It's everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Throughout, I mean, it's in this building, it's everywhere. But the question becomes, at what point does it become such that you can inhale sufficient traces of it to make you sick? So the question in that particular case was, did that result in an occurrence in the resort's insurance policy, because there was a third party that alleged bodily injury, which is covered by your commercial general liability policy. So we made the argument that it was covered. And fortunately, there's a it got very involved in lots and lots of back and forth between the policyholder, the insurance carrier, and unfortunately, the gentleman, passed away. Fortunately, we were able to persuade the insurance carrier to make at least the widow, somewhat whole.
Let me ask you this in terms of when you're working with a client. Does it matter how big or small that business is?
No, what matters is the legitimacy of their insurance claim. So we deal with claims with clients who tens of thousands of dollars, and then we also deal with them when they're in the millions of dollars. To me, again, we are client relationship based. And if we have a client that has a relatively small insurance claim, because we know the client, because we care for the client, because we understand the business, will certainly advise and assist.
And I also think it's important for people to understand that, like you said before, we pay our insurance premiums, and so we think that we're going to be covered. And I really think it's important that you do read your policy, right? But unfortunately, how many people understand their policy?
Very few, and typically what will happen is the first person who gets blamed when there's a denial by the insurance company is the insurance agent, the agent that purchases the policy for you. I can't tell you how many times that's the initial reaction, and I'd say 90% of the time that reaction's incorrect. It's not the agent's fault. The question becomes, what does that policy cover? And if the policy covers your loss, then let's pursue it.
I want to also talk to people out there to make sure that they do have insurance, business insurance, right? It's important.
It's very important. An odd thing is that in Arizona, unlike some other states, myself as a lawyer, the state bar does not require us to have errors and omissions coverage. It's crazy, in my opinion. Yet, if you have a transportation fleet, it's mandatory that you have coverage, insurance policies for that fleet.
And I'm going to say, something can happen to me, and I'm not just a sole proprietor, but I'm in a business that, when you're working with people, things can happen. And I never had anything until obviously something came up, and then of course I had to make sure. But more importantly, for everybody to understand their policy, and if God forbid something's happening, certainly don't try and do it yourself.
Yeah, and if I could add, if you're a small business and you assign purchase of insurance to somebody in your company to work with the insurance agent, that insurance agent would be more than happy to sit down with you as the principal at no cost, over lunch or whatever, and explain to you, here's the coverage that I think you need. Is there something in your business that this might not apply to, that we need to go out and see if there's insurance for it?
And that's a good idea to do. The best thing to also is call you, talk to you, have a second opinion if something is going on. Please don't try and do these things on your own. You've been doing this forever, and what you brought was the big guns to be affordable for us normal folks out there, right?
And I can't say how much I enjoyed doing that, because for so many years I was unable to help friends and people who had small businesses because they couldn't afford the hourly rate of the large firm. I was unable to help them other than through casual conversations.
Business interruption, real quickly, how far does that go? I mean, a lot of people are being interrupted even as we speak.
Right. Well, if you're thinking about COVID-19, so what you have to demonstrate for business interruption loss, you have to show that there's some type of damage to your equipment or some type of loss of use of the equipment. And so it becomes a big battle.
So,
carrier and
but
policy.
again, too, if you have dealt with something and you feel like you might have a case, have them have a conversation with you.
Yes.
Their phone number to call them again direct at 602-566-7425. They do free consultations. The website is frlawgroup.com. They're rated with the Better Business Bureau. They work nationwide. So important for you to make sure, let's say you're starting a business, make sure that you do have that coverage. Make sure that you should read your policy. God forbid you're going through something. Again, don't do it for yourself. Have somebody look through this. They've been doing this for 31 years. Their number again is 602-566-7425.